the sepsis risk calculator, it occurred to us, gee, it would be nice if we could kind of see what other hospitals that may be involved in this were doing and kind of get a peek under the hood at that from those guys. And so you've heard a lot today about kind of why the use of the calculator is very important, and some great scenarios about how it was implemented. But I just this is not really a how-to talk, but more of just what worked for us at St. Joe's. Next slide. So what we did is a nurse-driven protocol. At St. Joe's, we have 4,500 live births, the largest birthing hospital in the state of Colorado. And we have a team of transition nurses. Not everybody knows a transition nurse is a nurse involved in all day long, basically just transitioning a baby from an intrauterine to an extrauterine existence. And we determined that that would probably be the best core team to kind of make a sepsis risk calculator. They would be the best to kind of do the first evaluation and to kind of be able to take it from there and make it a nurse-driven protocol. And I'm very proud of the fact that Karen Cayley, for all the RNs on the call today, she won the Nightingale Award. It's the highest award given to any RN in the state of Colorado every year, just one nurse. And she won it based on the results of our project that we did. So we had some great results. And I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit from the nuts and bolts and how it looks as a day in the life, and maybe a little bit about, we use Epic and what it looks like from that technical platform, and may or may not apply to your use, but just as an idea. So again, it's Epic-based, but I'll go back a sec, Val, please. It is an Epic-based documentation system that we used. And we built the custom flow sheets initially because it didn't exist in Epic. But since then, the Epic Foundation platform does include the sepsis risk calculator in the flow sheets. And so for those of you familiar with flow sheets and use in Epic, you can acquire that. So now we can proceed to my next slide. Thanks. So, you know, a baby is born at St. Joe's. It's going to be a very similar picture to what happens at your place. We're going to do Apgars and skin to skin, but that's typically the time at which the transition nurse is going to do some kind of documentation and kind of an evaluation of the baby. And for it to work so that you can calculate, have the calculator work in your EMR, whether you use Epic or not, it's important that there is some kind of a link between the mother's chart and the baby's chart, obviously, since we're pulling data from both patients. At St. Joe's, if a mom is registered to 4125, then our baby is in N4125. That's how the link works in Epic for us to pull the data both. But this is just a neat screenshot of the neonate, but you can see that the maternal summary and the link to the mom's chart appears, and this is how the data is pulled. You could do this either way. You can even do it on a paper system, of course, but this is just, again, an example of how we do it at St. Joe's. Next slide. Because of the fact that we have many different provider groups that have privileges to work at St. Joe's, one of our implementation barriers was the fact that there was a lot of different opinions about how we should use the sepsis risk calculator. And we've referenced Karen Poplow a couple of times. I know at her talk at Vermont Oxford a couple of years ago, she suggested that when she first pitched the idea of the risk calculator to her colleagues, she was literally laughed in her face. They said, this isn't a possibility even. And so given that, when we were in the throes of implementation, that was one of the barriers we had as well. And admittedly, we don't use the calculator exactly as you will see it in Tracy's examples or as it is on the Kaiser link. We kind of have a little bit of some differences that I can talk about here, one of which is the fact that we round our ruptured membranes up to the next flow hour. And we look at vitals at the 2-hour mark initially as well. But you can see in this screen, it's kind of neat, is the fact that the maternal temps that are out of range would be highlighted and then they'd be pulled into the flow sheet on Epic. And one other point that I always like to make is the fact that equivocals in our workflow are not always transferred to the NICU. So that's more of a nurse practitioner or a neonatologist call based on the clinical picture of the neonate to decide whether or not that baby goes to the NICU. So our equivocals can kind of go either way. Next slide. So this probably looks very familiar to you after Tracy's talk, and if you've used the calculator at all, it's just the EPIC version of it, of this Kaiser sepsis risk calculator. This is the EPIC version. And so once all of the data is put in by the transition nurse, it flows into a flow sheet, and you can see you have the well-appearing equivocal and the red section. And this is just a report that gets generated. Our transition nurses do a progress note, and this screenshot and all this data flows right into their note, and the providers can do the same as well. And I think I already commented on the different provider groups. Next slide. And this is just not unlike what Melda presented, but this is just kind of our results page. And the PDA cycle number 4 is the point at which we implemented the use of the calculator. And you can see prior to that, it was, very high variability in our antibiotic use rate. We thought we were doing okay. We were actually at or slightly below the Vermont Oxford national averages, but through the use of the calculator, we were able to improve our antibiotic use rate pretty dramatically. And as you can see too, our control limits are much more narrow on this run chart, and you can see that our results have been very consistent thereafter. So I don't want to really make a really long, this is just a short discussion about how it could look if you were to implement it the way we did at St. Joe's. So I think that's all I really have. I think our next section in today's talk is going to be more of a Q&A and discussion. So I think it's open to all the panel members for any questions you might have.